Hi everyone, and welcome to the very last panel discussion of the week here at the Watches and Wonders Salon 2022. It's a pleasure to welcome you today here on the set. I have new guests with me and we're going to talk about circularity. And we will see if circularity applies to watches and how it does. Let's go try to answer this question and meet my guests right now. Hi everyone, it's a pleasure to welcome you here today on the set. This is the very last panel discussion, but as we say, last but not least. So I'm starting with you, Jean-Marc Pontrier. You are CEO at Panerai. Thank you for being with us today.
Good afternoon.
Next to you today is Clarisse Desgeorges, Chief Marketing Officer at Zenith. Hi Clarisse.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. And then in front of you, you have Diana Kulilas. She's Secretary General, Swiss Better Gold Association. You're just back from a very long trip, so we're very happy to have you with us today on the set. Thank you for being here. And next to you is our last guest. This is Matt Bowling, today co-founder of Watchfinder. Hi, Matt.
Hello.
Thank you for being with us today as well. And then I have my panel coordinator just next to me. This is Professor Stéphane Giraud from the IMD. Thank you for being with us. And we are ready, I think.
Yes,
But
super excited.
Super excited.
Hello, everyone.
Before starting, I have to go to Benjamin. He's here with us every day, almost every day, because we also had Pascal. He's collecting your questions, meaning if you want to send us questions, if you want to send us comments or anything, well, just do it via the chat box, and then Benjamin will collect these questions and pass them on for our guests to answer. Hi, Benjamin.
Hello, Melanie. Great to be here again.
Perfect. We'll talk to you later. Okay, so we are ready to start. We are talking today about circularity, and this main question is, can a watch be circular by nature, by concept? And then off to you.
Thanks. So I would like to start and launch this very interesting discussion, I'm sure, with three main points. The first one is, if we're talking about circularity or circular economy, we have to understand the concept, right? So we think of circularity as opposed to linearity. The linear economy functions based on the concept you take certain resources, you use them once to make one product that will be used once and then disposed at the end. The model of economic value of this is really based on more of this. Every time it's about more. Circular economy, which is actually an old concept, is about reusing a lot of the things that are input in making products or services. And I think the whole concept of economic value is based on preservation. Right? So it's a model where it's about protecting, it's about being aware of rarity, where is the rarity, and probably a model where the model of growth needs to be much more qualitative than quantitative. So we all remember, the milkman. Do you remember the milkman? In the UK, every morning you would drop your bottles, they would refill it,
I
and
wasn't
each
born.
time. Right. Well, maybe not. So circularity is an old concept. The problem, why it didn't really function anymore, it's because the economic incentives were not aligned anymore to support circularity. Think about how we've been trained at buying a new smartphone, which lasts only a couple of years. Think about, washing machines, appliances at home that were made to last 20 years. Now they're by design made to be thrown away after just a few years, right? The problem is that we are in a situation where we cannot afford anymore that way of living, right? There is a climate emergency. It was made again in the news yesterday. We consume, as a world, 1.6 planet every year to live the way we live, with huge amount on the natural ecosystems. We're talking about now about the big extinction, right, of animal species. By 2030, 2032, it's estimated that 700 million Africans will have to leave the continent because their place of birth will be inhabitable. Right, so we are facing an unprecedented responsibility. And if we talk about circularity today, it's all in the context of sustainability. Okay? And here, I want to make this point very clear, is that it can't just be greenwashing. The circular economy, if it's not connected with a sustainable agenda, is greenwashing. Okay? And let me give you a couple of examples of what I mean. You know, to sustain the economy, the second-hand economy that's booming in the horologery industry, you might still have completely unsustainable value chains. You might still have totally antisocial or social practices that are really damaging. Okay? So it's not, we shouldn't take per se that the second-hand model is actually sustainable. It might be circular if you want, but circularity without sustainability means nothing, right? The second element is we talk a lot, about recycling, upcycling. This is very important, but it's just about minimizing the negative impact that we as economic actors are doing on society, right? To move to next stages of real circularity connected with sustainability, we have to think about new business models, right? And it's about eco-effectiveness, respecting and protecting, okay, on the carbon front, but also on the social front and the natural ecosystem. So I'm really looking forward to see and dialogue with you about the amount of innovation that you're bringing to the table so that collectively our societies can survive.
So, Stefan, this is really clear as a start, huh? We can say so. Let's move directly to you, Clarisse, and to see at Zenith what concretely you are doing when we take a look at this circular economy. On that side, what are you doing at Zenith?
Sure. So really circularity is part of our CSR strategy. So we've been building a program which is called Zenith Horizon, where we have been grouping some people within the company and the manufacturer, group of 10, under the governance of our CEO. And those people regroup and really every month having discussion on all the actions that have been implemented around sustainability. And this goes absolutely towards a roadmap that has been written towards reaching goals by 2025. So we are also having and inviting on a regular basis some outside guests within that are really bringing their expertise. Like in a couple of weeks, we will have Alessio Satta, who is the founder of Medsi Foundation. So he will come, be part of the committee, and really bring his expertise and bring his judgment on what the measures we are doing. And in terms of really the program in itself, it has three main pillars. So the first one is about the products and reducing environmental footprint that we can have on either the products and also what we produce in terms of packaging, collaterals, and the POS materials using recycled materials. So that's the first pillar. The second one is on the manufacturer and all initiatives that we implement to really consider the sustainability. And this goes through reducing the quantity of generated waste, whether it is for paper, for plastic and water, like 10% every year. And we also really connect with the people, and we implement a lot of action which go through individual measures. Basically, it's no plastic policy in the manufacturer. It is really encouraging carpooling, for instance, for the people commuting. It's also about encouraging local consumption. So we bring products from around the local where the manufacturer is based. And I would say the third pillar of this strategy is really promoting the circularity in itself with the Zenith Icons program that we have implemented 18 months ago. And it's really about certified pre-owned. So we source watches for our most important, I would say, collection back 50 years ago. And we source them, we bring them back to the manufacturer, we restore them in our workshops using original components. And then we offer them and certify them and offer them to our clients. And the idea is really that we invite them to come to our flagship store, and they have the possibility to really buy those products that have been restored within the manufacturer.
So we can really see there are some goals. You need to stick to these goals.
Exactly.
There are some pillars. I know also at Panerai you are using the 5R, as we say. This is recycle, reduce, rethink, repurpose, reuse.
Exactly.
Can you give us some examples?
Well, you have your 5R, and at Panerai we have the 5P, which are under the umbrella of Panerai Ecologico. So we created that program now 4 years ago, under the inspiration of Mike Horn. You have heard he was here with us this week, and Mike one day told me about the degradation of the world, also in very remote areas, like the North Pole, where probably we'll never go in our life, but he was telling me a couple of years ago I was going there, and there was 8 meters of depth of ice, and today you have a couple of centimeters where you cannot go anymore. And that goes very quick, and that refers to the statistics. We have everyday statistics which are frightening about the speed at which it goes. So at Panerai, we created a program named Panerai Ecologico, which is covering all the initiatives, a little bit like what you have at Zenith, all the initiatives that the 740 people can take in our company. Because it's not only products. What you have to realize is that it's all the business model of the company which is impacted. So P, for example, stands for products. That is the top of the iceberg. This is what is visible by our customers. This is what is easy to translate in communication, PR. So here, last year, we brought the first watch called the E-Lab ID, which was close to be 100% recycled. We have now the E-Steel program, which is a recycled steel at 95%. That we have integrated last year. We extended this year, and by 2025, the commitment we have at Panerai is that all the steel will disappear because it will be replaced by the e-steel. That's what we have announced here at the beginning of the week. We have the processes, second P. Processes is all what's happening in transport. We don't send POS material, boutiques, shop-in-shop by airplane anymore. From April 1st, which was last week, we are using boat, and we limit the plane to the strict minima for the products only. We have the packaging. We are launching a new generation of packaging. Next year, 100% of our packaging will be recycled. Then we have in P, all the people involved in different activities. So we have corporate initiatives, and then we have individual initiatives. So we are supporting at Panerai this year 5 initiatives, which we fund, which we support financially, of people living in different countries. We have 24 subs in the world where we are supporting initiatives, which can go to reusing fruits that we are spoiling in Switzerland. In Switzerland, there are 300 kilograms of fruits and vegetables spoiled each year by individuals in Switzerland. So how we can cope with this, close to our door. Then we have the productivity of our real estate. So our retail business, we have about 200 stores in the world. How we can do the next generation of our stores, like the one we have opened recently in Geneva, with materials which are much more recycled, lighting, all what is integrated in a store, which is not the way we were doing before, where we couldn't care less about how polluting they were, but it's now part of the ingredient. Then we have all the manufacturing activities, so how we can make sure that we are sourcing geothermy, we have solar cells for our electricity, and all this contribute to make it a priority for the brand. For example, and I go back to what you were saying about products. For a couple of years, Panerai was part of these brands, where we were thinking just a couple of weeks before the SIHH at that time, which is on Wonders now, right, how we can be a little bit more ecological. So we put a strap, and then we have what you were speaking about, the greenwashing. Okay? Now it's part of the product briefing. At the beginning of the product briefing, when they start to think about the material, the price point, the movement, the target group, and so on, what is the share of recyclability we are going to have in each product, and how Mr. Recyclability in our company is going to have an impact to be able to push all the organization in the same direction.
It means actually working on every level, and this is cradle to cradle, actually thinking from the start till the end of the chain.
On not believing that it's only the products which are the story. It's all the different chains. It's also the P like partnerships. We have developed this initiative with UNESCO, which is supporting us by knowing. Because we have to realize in our industry, we are at a level where we don't really know. We know the targets, but we don't really know how to do it because we start from a white page, like you probably did also at Zenith a couple of months or years ago, and you don't have any method or benchmarks. You create the benchmark because we are part of these brands which have initiated this first approach.
And it's a lot of work. I'm heading to you, Diana. You're representing the Swiss Better Gold Association. We are talking about these 5 R. There is another R we can use. This is refuse.
Yes, indeed. And we could see with the history of the watch industry, maybe the circularity has started by identifying the no-go areas, because it's not about the industry and the footprint of the industry. Here at manufacturing, it starts at the very beginning of the value chain, as Stefan was saying, at the extraction. So we would see the first moves of brands of saying, okay, this type of provenance is a no-go for us. It has happened for rubies, it has happened for diamonds, for other materials, and slowly, we start building the ESG eligibility of the supply chain. So the circularity, for me, I would look at it as a whole setup from the very beginning of the chain, the extraction, to the end of life of the product. So, as you were saying, indeed, what is the impact at the packaging, at the assembling? What is the part of innovation? What can we integrate as a new element, and then going to the upstream. So where do we source from? Is this eligible? Is this what we want to be identified with? Mm-hmm. So we started from there and now integrate the new elements of it.
But I would say, as we said in our previous panels, this is really a question of mindset, and I think you won't disagree with me, Stefan.
No, well, mindset, in some sense, it's a way of behaving, right? And what Panerai, what Jean-Marc just described is the context which shapes our behaviors. And mindset is not an abstract thing. It's made of concrete habits we all take in a company because, for example, you have your 5 Ps and you add another P. That's all.
Yeah.
So we've talked about what was going on, what are the concrete initiatives you're pushing on, but there's also why did it happen suddenly? And then I want to turn to you, Matt, and see what's suddenly driving the interest in circularity.
I mean, from Watchfinder's perspective, our role is to extend the lifetime of watches, and I think there are several things that have made that much more popular. One of them is, it's the way that new watches are released. It's about the evolution of the catalogue. If you think about pre-owned, once a watch falls out of the current catalogue, the only place that you can find that watch is in the pre-owned market. So that, I think, is very important. And then if you think about the, lots of column inches written about the Patek Philippe Nautilus, and really that process was triggered by the watch falling out of the current catalogue, and it's, so I think that there's that element. That's why things are popular. Supply, if you think about the way new watches are available in the marketplace today, there are some brands that you just cannot buy a brand new watch from a retailer. And so where do you go? You go to the pre-owned market. So those kind of mechanical commercial levers, I think, have been moving, but awareness, again, Jean-Marc has very kindly hosted Watchfinder this week at Watches and Wonders, and it's been enormous privilege for Watchfinder to be there in that space and benefit from that integrity. It's like you putting your arm around Watchfinder and saying, like, these guys are okay. We've worked very hard over the last 20 years to do that, but the market, again, your Icon program, it's about, if a brand is engaged in this space, it brings credibility. So I think that there are, lots of these levers have been pulled at the same time, and it's just there's a huge interest in pre-owned as a product category within watches now.
Let's turn to Benjamin. There's a first question coming in from the audience.
Yes, and directly related to the debate right now. There's somebody asking, there's a lot of very good initiatives out there. Which are concretely the most important ones the industry can act upon now? Because there's a sense of urgency out there. So on what do we act first?
Diana?
I think it's very much depending on the strategy of each brand. What is the priority of the brand? Normally, we see today the brands prioritize ESG, maybe with a little tendency on E rather than on S and G. I see brands turning to recycled materials, for example, and sometimes I think it's really good. It's really good, but sometimes maybe we neglect the social impact also of our supply chains and who are behind the raw materials that we are using. So I think it's about equilibrium and about prioritization.
Stefan, you wanted to react?
I think that, you know, the way we approach circularity, sustainability, transformation at IMD is that it has to come from the social purpose. So what are the social pain points a brand wants or can legitimately solve out there? Because brands cannot solve any problem in the world. So you will have to pick and choose which ones you want to really, where you can really make an impact. And that has to be clear in your purpose. You know, what are the social pain points that our brand is going to resolve? So like in your group, you know, the Chloé, the aspect about empowering women forward, you know, it's about a gender equality type of purpose from which the rest of the sustainability strategy, including circularity, is built upon, you know. But what's your take on that one?
Well, for me, there is one thing which we should not forget. Whatsoever we have a strategy and so on, there is an urgency. Okay? So we can have all the strategy we want. When you speak with Macron, who is in a survival mood for a couple of months when he is doing what he does, he has a strategy which is to survive. And today we still have the luxury because we live in this beautiful Palais Expo, because we work in great companies, because we live in Switzerland. And so I was reading an article this morning. There is 3 football playgrounds per minute, which are destroyed in Amazonia. Okay, so we can accumulate like that all the statistics which we see in all the newspapers we have, but there is a sense of urgency, and we have seen that in some industries like the car business, the manufacturers were not taking the lead, so the governments have taken the lead. And today we are very lucky because we have no government which are imposing us anything. We can do what we want. If we want to pollute, we can pollute. If we want to make products which are disastrous for the environment, we can continue to do that.
I don't know if we should use the word lucky then.
No, that's why I strongly believe we have to take that advantage to all accelerate in the same direction. And there are not good or bad ideas. There are people who are going to try to have some good things. We decided last year, for example, when we were in our digital Watches and Wonders, that the e-steel collection was an open ecosystem. So we have said at Panerai, after 3 years of development, after 3 years of creating a network of different suppliers that we qualified, we developed a product. And instead of keeping it only for us, we are opening the rest of the competition, including our friends of Zenith, to be able to say, come to us, see what we've been doing. We give you our suppliers list. We give you the protocol, how we did it, so that as many people, as many brands can do basically the same. And this is because perhaps Zenith or other brands will find good practice that whether that we copy their products or they copy our products, but we can enrich the know-how we have in Switzerland in the watchmaking industry to be able to advance our cause. Otherwise, if we all work together in our different stories with different strategy and so on, we'll still be here in 50 years. And we already are a small industry because we don't pollute as much as many other industries, but we have a shared voice, and we see it here at Palais Expo, which is huge. So the way we can advance and give proofs that we do something with numbers, with lead time, opening our books to competitors so that we can all share, I don't know, the 10, 20, 100 best practice in our industry and make it a common pool.
And we're touching a very central point now. This is partnership. Clarisse, I know, as you've just said, Jean-Marc, you are also working on these partnerships because without these partnerships, there's nothing possible, actually. Can you tell us more?
Yeah, absolutely. For us, indeed, the partnering with the right people is very important. And you know, this is not only our expertise, so we definitely need to be open and see what's going on the market to source the right materials and include them into our watch creation. So very recently, we have announced a partnership with Nona. Nona is a startup that has been incubated by LVMH 1 or 2 years ago. And what they do is really reselling dead stock fabrics from all the fashion maison of the group. And then we have been transforming some of those fabrics into watch straps. So it's really about upcycling and you know, using those materials and coming with a collection, which is really a bit special. But you know, this is one of the partnership we did. Also, we are partnering with Extreme E, which is an off-road car championship. And they are very focusing on sustainability and to pay tribute to all the actions they put in place around sustainability. We have been in contact with another of their partners, which is Continental Tires. And Continental Tires have given us some of their tires from previous races season that we have used to incorporate into our strap. And we came up with another collection using those recycled tires as part of the strap of the collection, which is called Extreme E. And also we developed for this special watch a watch box, which is also incorporating some materials from the trampoline, actually, of the race. Okay. So, you know, it's really about getting those materials, testing what can be done, and incorporating either on the product or on the packaging. And for that, we are very lucky because at LVMH, we are really getting in contact with a lot of startups, especially because they are in contact 2 to 3 years ago through, you know, really gathering, and we have the opportunity to meet with innovative and sustainable startups that are really coming up with new alternative materials, whether it is on vegan leather, whether it is on sourcing, you know, other materials from other industries as well, and they are offering their services and their materials for us to test in our industry, in our products.
Jenna, when we hear all these initiatives, we see that the partnerships are super important and they have a positive impact.
Absolutely, it's very important because no one has it all and no one knows it all. So I think it's important that we rely on each other's competencies and each other's strengths, and maybe sometimes also are able to put our maybe competitive spirit aside for the good causes. And this is what we typically see within our association, where we have 27 members now, which are in the normal life competitors, but within the association they have one common goal on ESG procurement, sourcing gold from artisanal small-scale gold miners in Latin America and contributing to the inclusion of these responsible supply chains into their products. So yeah, that's an example that it works when we have a little bit of will.
So we can say that circularity starts with responsible sourcing?
Oh, for me, yes, definitely, yes, because we really have to think of what is what is behind the label, how it has been sourced, which kind of impact it involved, social, environmental. Are we willingly or unwillingly financing money laundering or promoting child labor? What can we do? You mentioned the deforested areas in Amazon, but it is there now. But what do we do to rehabilitate these lands? Can we do something? Definitely, with the leverage we have, we are small, but yet we are powerful. What can we do in practical terms on the ground in order to contribute to positive transformation?
Let's turn to Benjamin now. There is a new question coming in from the audience.
A very interesting question directly to Diana. SBGA has been going on for 8 years, I think, now. What do you need from brands, from governments, and from individuals to step up the process, to have more volume, to to bring that, to scale this thing up?
Thank you for the question. Very good one indeed. Well, we are growing. We are scaling. We started in 2013 with the first export of 27 kilos. And now we have reached 3 tons a year.
Okay.
So we are
So
scaling.
it's a big amount, yeah.
But however, it is still small amount comparatively to the global gold, which is engaged in production.
If we
So what
compare
we-
it to the start, it's pretty nice to
yeah,
see.
yeah. So I always like to put it in proportion. But what we do need, it is indeed partnerships, engagement. As mentioned earlier, we do see brands turning towards recycled gold in our instance. So we really encourage to step in and to contribute to the social impact which is behind artisanal small-scale gold mining. We do need brands to engage in this path of continuous improvement on the sites, because yes, we know that recycled gold has a very limited CO2 impact. However, we also know that artisanal small-scale gold mining employs 40 million people, and they are there, and they produce, and they will keep producing. And given the demand for gold and the growing demand for gold, there won't be enough of recycled gold.
Sure.
So we really have to find solutions,
Yeah,
indeed, and stop marginalizing these artisanal and small-scale mining community. And also, what we need is that the end clients also ask about this product. What is behind your supply chain? So it is really extremely rare that an end buyer comes into a boutique and asks, where do you source your raw material?
Yeah.
So we need that people coming, exactly.
Matt, if I head back to you, when people come into your stores, what are they asking? Are they asking, do they have this conscience about the fact that they are reusing, it's not first buying, it's secondhand, and it makes a difference or not?
See, I'm not sure that it's the most important thing to them. Like, the point about education, I think there's a responsibility in the industry to make it important to them so that they are asking those questions. But for now, like, I think what brings people to businesses that are in pre-owned now is the opportunity to buy something that you can't buy easily somewhere else. So I think that, but that it's just education for me. Like, it's a long-term job, but that's what needs to happen.
But at the same time, when we look at the numbers of the second-hand luxury items, it's incredible. They are really growing.
I mean, there's lots of growth in the market, and if you think about it, when we were talking about watches being discontinued, if you just go back 10 years, if you think about the volume of product that's in the market that has been sold as new and potentially is now pre-owned, the estimate is that by 2025, the pre-owned market will be bigger than $30 billion, and that it's growing about 8% a year, which the new market is estimated to grow between 1% and 3%. So growth is significantly greater in pre-owned. But I just see that as people learn more about the integrity that's in the industry, I think that's, 20 years ago when Watchfinder was set up, we saw a market that was not particularly mature. But now, Clarice, you've got, LVMH have a big program about pre-owned. Watchfinder is now part of the Richemont ecosystem. We're partnering with fantastic brands like Panerai here. That is what brings people into pre-owned. It's about integrity and trust, because they are, we're in 80 different Richemont boutiques. You can go into 80 different Richemont boutiques around the world, and you can part exchange a watch through the program that we're rolling out with those brands. For us, the opportunity is way beyond the Richemont boutiques, but it's about bringing customers' expectations into line. We want them to demand high quality product. We want them to demand fantastic after sales, great product knowledge, all of the things that are delivered so well in new. We want them to understand that you can still get that same service in pre-owned, and that essentially that's what's driving the growth. And I must admit, my gut feeling is that the pre-owned market is already bigger than the brand new market, and that's not something that you'll read anywhere. But I think if you look at the volume of product, it makes sense to me that it's bigger.
Actually, you all need to be part of the same circle.
But that's why we proposed them a year ago, 2 years ago, because we were supposed to be already last year together. It's to have on the Panerai world here a watchfinder exhibition. And when we decided that together, they selected products because it's a year for one of our line this year named Submersible, and they came with products we don't have anymore in our assortment. And they were able to offer our customers additional concepts compared to the new products. So I never consider that as a competitive environment. They do a job we don't know how to operate. We are here to create products, to produce products, to develop retail concepts. That is the core of our brand. They know, and they have the knowledge, the competence, the people, the database of being able to speak about purchasing, selling prices all the day. So that's why we host them, because they do about Panerai a different job than the one we have. So it's different competence. That's why we host you at our boutique of Geneva. And this week we had, for the first time, this type of interaction, press, dealers, final customers, about what is Watchfinder doing in Panerai. That was the first day. Or after, it was considered like a normal ecosystem in the Panerai world.
So it went pretty fast. So we've heard from the beginning the initiatives. We heard pretty much why it started. Now we have to see how it's going on and what are the next challenges you are heading to. And I'm also talking about financial incentives. Clarisse, what can you tell us about that?
Sure, but the main challenges that we are facing, and it's really linked to also, Matt, what you're mentioning. For us, it's related to the Zenith certified pre-owned that we have for Zenith Icon. So it's really about, because as you mentioned, Jean-Marc, it's not really our expertise. So sourcing the right watches, the historical that are part of our DNA and that we are interested in, it takes time and it takes resources. Bringing back to the manufacturer, restoring them as well. It's bringing those people, watchmakers, working on the restoration part of it, and then certifying. So that's certainly one of the challenges we are facing, that limiting us, in the rollout of the program. And the second challenge that we are facing is also about the sourcing of the materials. So it's really about sourcing the right materials, which are not always performing to the standards that we have in terms of luxury brands. What we certainly do not want is to disappoint the client with a quality that is not what they expect from a brand like Zenith or Panerai, So it's really about testing those materials that we are submitting, we're interested in, and making sure that they perform correctly. So they go under a series of testing, and this takes time as well. So we need to be patient and, take the time to really source properly and make sure that it's testing properly and that it fits with our products.
So it's a balance to find with all the different levels. What are the challenges you are facing at Panerai?
So the biggest challenge is that we start a new business, which we in the watch industry probably didn't do since a couple of 100 years. So we are here at the crossroad where we say, okay, we did it, but now how we are going to reinvent your business? So we have new problems like, for example,
Boom tried, a few years ago. It was quite revolutionary.
For sure. But how we do it at a scale where we are all embarked in the same speed. So there have been a lot of brands which have been trying, on good, by the way, because if you don't try, you cannot make it happen. The biggest issue we have these days is how we embark the whole network of suppliers, for example. Because you can have a great ambition at a brand level, but how your network of suppliers are going to have at the same speed the development. The biggest challenge we had the last 3 years to build this e-steel have been to qualify our existing suppliers on new suppliers who are not used to work for the watch industry. And that's what you were rightfully saying. Okay, on how you embark a full industry in that direction. So it's because if we take initially some individual initiatives, it will not have a great impact, even though we put all our energy, creativity, and so on and so on. That's why we all have to be together. When I propose to our competitors and friends to embark with us, it's because we want to get this critical size. Also, when we speak about the suppliers, if Zenith tomorrow and all the competitors we have do speak the same language than us, then you start to have them also working, researching, finding solutions. I'm very convinced that at the end of the day, the solutions are not so incredible to find. I'm sure that can be much easier than we believe. Okay? Because if, and I repeat what I was telling you about
I'm not so sure about that. Solutions for sure, but are you going to reinvent the system? Because the system is geared for more growth, more consumption. You know, where is the role of responsible growth and what brands will play in that model? That's what we would like also to hear.
We will not have other choices in a couple of years. The rules are going to change. And you were speaking about, do the customers do ask us? Last year we had customers telling us, but is it really recyclability part of the luxury business? So I don't remember what we were answering, but this year we don't have this question about. We have how much speed you're going to change and switch your business model to this new business model, to these new initiatives. I got a remark from a young customer on our Panerai world. We are having some plastic bottles on our booth, like all of us, because I think we're all sourced in the same way, okay? They tell us, but you are a circular economy, but you continue to have one-shot products like this plastic of bottles. And he was right. Yeah. We have to change. Is it complicated to get bottles with glass bottles? It's not really complicated. It's just a question of willingness that we all say, so next year at Palexpo, the plastic bottles will be out of our business model. So when Mike Horn, a couple of years ago, gave me a piece of his boat, Pangea, which we are sponsoring, and told me I have to replace the steel piece, and I give it to you because perhaps you can do watches out of that. And I brought that piece of metal back to our manufacturer, and they told me, yeah, we can do watches out of this. And they did 5 pieces from this metal piece. And then we said, if it is not so complicated, why we could not extend that to much more pieces? That's how the E-Lab ID is born, and that's how the E-Steel has been born. So if we want to dedicate the same energy, the same financial resources, creative processes, I can tell you, we can do a lot of work together.
Jenna.
And I agree quite a lot with Jean-Marc, because there is no time actually, and the pressure is there from the end consumers. The famous millennials, they start buying the watches. And the very millennials are also working in the brands today.
Yes,
they are
absolutely.
the workforce, and according to some statistics, they are 70% of our work power, and they do want these products in their production line.
There is
right.
very mixed research about the consumer behavior. You know, I had exchange with that, but the research is not supporting. You know, on the one hand they say they want, but on the other hand, when you look at the real purchasing criteria, they're not aligned with sustainability.
It's something to say, it's something else to do.
But it must be evolving, though. I mean, you know, if it must be becoming more and more the case, and you know, and it's at what point in the future will it be a requirement, or I will not transact with you if you don't do that. And again, like, I get your point that people say one thing and do another, but I don't think that's very far away.
What you are saying is that when we hire at Panerai about 160 newcomers per year, part of the new generation. They know we are part of Richemont. They know that Panerai is a successful brand. The first thing they ask us, what are you doing about sustainability on being a responsible brand in the future? So it's not about how much working hours are going to have and so on, all the type of questions that probably people were asking us 10 years ago. What are you doing so that the job I'm going to do has a meaning for me? And I think that goes in the right direction. That's why this critical size we all need to have in materials, in approaches, is so important that we speak the same language so that we get a critical size.
Matt, is that the same kind of challenges you're facing as second-hand dealer?
How do you mean?
I mean, you're doing second-hand, so how do you respond to these questions? Because they're not exactly the same as for the watch industry, directly makers, I mean.
Yeah, no, I think that because Watchfinder don't make anything, because we resell the products that you make, you can say, well, okay, our role in this circularity is to extend the lifetime of the product. But we have a responsibility in exactly the same way that any company has a responsibility. But I think that, so in terms of we piggyback, I mean, this is all Watchfinder, we steal your ideas, we sell your products, we live off of the creativity and the imagination that exists in the new watch industry. But our contribution is just to extend the lifetime of the watches, but that's not enough. And that's what we're saying, is that, as a business, we need to do more.
So where should we go next?
Maybe I would just like to add, we were asking ourselves the challenge of circularity. I think for the watch industry, it's an opportunity actually, because there are things, and we see today on the panel, there are things happening, and I think really we now have the opportunity to boost these elements, to relate all of these individual elements to a more overall movement, let's say, and being more inclusive and considering the whole value chain of the industry. And I see it as an opportunity because the end users are going towards this. And so we are now still able to catch the train.
And concretely, what can you offer? How can we do that better to go in this direction?
Look into the supply chains again, look into your research and development, what can you do new, what kind of new materials you can do, what is your lifespan of your watch. The watch by itself, it is made to last. I have never seen any watch in the garbage, did you? So we are not in a fast fashion, fast food industry. It is made to last. So I think we really need to improve certain elements and how it is made, what it is made from, and what is the end of life of the timepiece, and connecting these three elements.
Just on that point,
Matt,
so
yeah.
we did a survey of 24,000 people, and nearly half of them, 48% of those people, had a luxury watch sitting in a drawer that they don't wear anymore.
For sure.
Which,
yes.
I mean, they last a long time, and so as a business, there's a phenomenal amount of liquidity sitting in there.
Yeah.
You know, so being able to turn that into a new watch purchase, but there's so much of that product that is in the market.
No, I agree.
So what is the next step? Where should we go next, Jean-Marc?
We are at the very, very, very beginning of the development. You know, at Panerai, with the America's Cup, we work a lot with Prada because we are part of the same team. In the fashion business, and you experienced that also because you said it, they are very much ahead. It's something they have started more than 10 years ago. We realized in the watch industry that we started 3-4 years ago, but in the fashion, they already have a large part of what they do, which is already recycled. So Prada, for example, they do the re-nylon concept on which we have a lot of interest on perhaps some activities. So the next step is to continue to accelerate what we do. If you put that in each of your department, including finance, as a strategic goal, you see that you move 740 people in the same direction. It's not only marketing and products, it's all the company which is involved. So if you take paper, for example, we stopped the paper in our service guide 2 years ago. We saved 12 tons of paper. But it's 12 tons of paper that, since we export 95% of what we do outside Switzerland, we're taking plane. So you multiply the 12 tons, multiply by the number of kilometers in the air, you see that each initiative has a consequence. And when you accumulate that at the end of the year, multiply by 740 people, multiply by all the brands we are, okay, you start to have a critical size. That's why this notion of critical size and getting each of us targets in euro, in Swiss franc, in kilograms, in whatsoever, to be able to advance in all together in the right direction.
I have a question to you, Stéphane. We hear a lot of good things, of course, and we hear a lot of will, but then these are words. They need to become concrete and be actions.
Yes.
How do you, I don't know if I have to say advise, how would you advise to push that up? What can we do concretely to make that happen?
Well, I think Jean-Marc gives part of the solution. So first of all, you know, we hear the growth of the pre-owned market. We also hear the growth of the first-hand market. 1 + 1, does it equal negative impact on natural ecosystems and climate change? That's the question that I want to ask. So, you know, much more needs to be done, but surely it's about relentless measuring. It's about relentless updating with the science, because the science also has certain limitations, but it's progressing fast. So, for example, limitations on social impact or impact on the natural ecosystems. The science on carbon footprints is resolved, right? Everyone can quantify that. The rest is more difficult, but it's to group those things. It's to have KPIs. It's to have a management that champions that. You know, I think that when we organized the panel, unfortunately, we still had too many brands that say, no, we're not going to talk about this topic. And I really commend your leadership in that space, because what happened in fashion, indeed, with the Fashion Compact, these companies coming together, if it doesn't happen in the watch and horologery, collectively, you won't move the needle. But it has to happen. And again, whatever you come from, pre-owned, so the reuse model or the first-hand model, if you don't measure, drive as a priority the sustainability pillars and drive that against KPIs, against employee communication, what does it mean for their business in everyday's term? Then it all falls down as any change program, I would say.
Agree.
I think from my perspective, we are trying to increase the size of the industry.
Yes.
And if you increase the size of the industry without making those changes, then you actually make the situation worse.
Yes. Yeah.
Benjamin is waving at me. You have a question?
Yeah, so I have, actually two questions. One is a bit of a rant in the same fashion that the young person approached Panerai with the plastic bottle. The question is, the salon is beautiful. The stands are enormous. How recycled are they?
Zenit, you want to give it a try?
That was just a rant, but it's something to think about. The other thing is that there's a big absent in the salon today is China. How do you get China or the Chinese consumer to get on board with all these problems?
So what about the stands?
So, go ahead.
Yeah, on the boost, it's been definitely part of the strategy of the production. We've been thinking like we're having this flooring made of recycled algae. I don't know the word.
Algae?
Yes, exactly. We have been renting most of the fixturing, and all fixturing that have been bought, we are recycling, bringing back to the manufacturer, using for our rooms, and so everything that has been basically produced will be reduced. And we've been having this big exhibition that is leaving, in a couple of days to New York, and that will go all around, the globe, not to be producing again the exhibition, which is really, stainless steel, the material that you want to produce again and again. So that's how we approached it.
Same for us. The decor you see today at Panerai is something we have used in Shanghai a couple of years ago that we are reusing here on same venue. It's not a one-shot where we are destroying everything tomorrow. We are going to reuse or give back because it's rented. Most of the elements you see here, from window displays to, I don't mention tables, on chairs, on lighting, all that stuff, which are going to be reused.
Further than that, then I have this question: should we do a physical salon?
That's a good question. But that's something I wanted to say, that we have proven the last 2 years that the business can be very strong, as it is for many brands today, without that we moved out of Geneva. Is it funny? Not necessarily, but it proves that we can continue our business. Many in other industries, we couldn't work because they couldn't travel, which was not our case. So at least we should also take into account that traveling like we did it in the past can be replaced very easily by this type of meeting that we had on still this week, because our Chinese friends, Taiwanese, Hong Kongese were not there. We did about a third of our meeting, which were digital.
So there was the question about China also from Benjamin. Do we have some figures? How can we embark them with us? Do they embark?
Today, the biggest market for electric cars in the world is in China. On other industries have a major impact on what we're going to do in watches. When you have the electric car business in China, which is spreading the noise that pollution has to come to an end, that they take initiatives in the car industry, like in the plane, like in many others, it has a direct impact on how quick we also can move with watches. So today, when you speak to Chinese or American or Europeans, they have the same level of understanding that it's not a choice. We behave like if we have a choice in the future, but we don't have a choice. We don't have a choice. The only question is how quick we can do it. That's the only rule on which we all have to agree.
So we're slowly coming to an end. But before we go to a general conclusion, Stéphane, I would
I'd like to make this point about the. I think it. I haven't seen real data. It's just by talking with brands. So there was an article in the Financial Times last week showing how the second-hand market is also really much growing in China. And one of the reasons is that we shouldn't underestimate that a lot of Chinese people bought these assets as financial assets that they could resell, in times of economic challenge. So we're seeing that happening. At the same time, you're reading this morning in the Financial Times that as an anti-COVID measure, China is re-promoting big time the natural Chinese medicines. And what is in Chinese medicines? It's tigers, rhinoceros, and sharks, perhaps. So, it's mixed. It's really mixed.
Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Let's finish by a round of table. If you have to make a resume, what would you say? What have to stand out of this panel? Jenna, I start with you.
Inclusion, I would say, and the verticality of the watch industry. The more verticalization, the more control, traceability, transparency on the value chains. I think no one is interested to have a transparent value chain which is messy, so which will move us towards more circularity, definitely. That's my opinion.
Matt.
I think for me it's about the inevitability. There is no choice. Like this is not something that's optional. And from a purely commercial perspective, customers will make the decision.
Clarisse.
For me, I would say it's really about the mindset, the transformation that we need to undertake and start for it and have this transformation on a day-to-day basis.
Well, when you see 2 years ago, nobody was speaking about that. 3 years ago, when we had our last Watches and Wonders. Today, it's one of your
main
broadcasts
topic.
for 1 hour. So that's why I'm very optimistic. We can go very quickly in that direction. I think that everybody is aware today that this is not a choice. And the question is how innovative, quick we can be together to reach this massive message that the Swiss watch industry has decided to go in that direction, whatsoever the brand for which we work.
Stéphane, so I'm turning to you for the conclusion. You have approximately 2 minutes. So,
well, I don't have so many things to say, but I think it was really, really interesting to see this growing interest and innovation happening, on all fronts, whether it's organizational innovation and the way you are driving process change and the way you're rethinking the product, the way you're rethinking the supply chain. Maybe playing on the younger generation, the younger talents inside your company. I think what we need to see more is collaboration, But importantly, I think something that will be required, Luxury, in particular the horologery, comes from an environment where it's all about discretion, confidentiality, and we move in an era of transparency. And I understand that for some brands it's a SeaWorld change, because then you start having to manage, this paradox between preserving the mystique of luxury and beautiful things, but at the same time being very transparent about what you do and the values that support that, right? And increasingly it will be difficult to hide behind cosmetic announcements that we called earlier in the panel greenwashing, right? So we at IMD, with our partners of Enterprise for Society, which include EPFL and HEC Lausanne, are launching a new transparency index where our ambition is to benchmark the luxury brands across all sectors on how transparent they are. So I invite your brands and the brands who are listening to us to join this initiative. We will reach out to you, to see who could participate, because I think it will be essential to build the trust. A lot of brands I talk to right now is how do we get our voice heard beyond the greenwashing that's happening everywhere, And people don't really have an understanding. Or consumers might not really know whether what brand is doing is really pushing the needle or not. So this transparency index should help that. In the same way that we're seeing more brands now thinking about B Corp certification, because it's about driving a social purpose from which a whole sustainability agenda flows down, and Chloe was one of the pioneers in luxury, but I know other brands who are working on that, even in horologery. I think what we hear, it's a holistic thing.
We need to conclude, Stefan.
So work together and think systemic. This is a circular system. But
Work
thank you. It was great to
together.
listen to you.
And I would add, trust and transparency can go together. Thank you for being with us today. I would like to thank you, Matt, Clarisse, Jean-Marc, Diana, and of course, Stefan, for your visions, for sharing your point of view, and for being transparent today. Thank you for watching us today as well. It was our last panel discussion of this Watches and Wonders Salon. Thank you for the whole participation. And of course, we'll meet again next year. On what topic? Well, we will see, but we will be back in Geneva for the Watches and Wonders 2023. Bye-bye, take care.